Welcome to this Black Talk Radio News Report and Commentary. My name is Scotty Reed, of course. Please continue to support the production of independent black media. And joining me on this podcast is Robin Jerome Benton, who I consider a friend, who I've known quite for some time, who I have worked with in the past in producing a radio broadcast as well as podcast called Race Treaty. He is a staunch human rights fighter, longtime activist. I mean, he isn't just talking about it, but he's being about it and living that life. And Robin, like I do, understand the power of media. As I've said from time to time, Malcolm X said that media is the most powerful entity on the face of the planet because it controls the minds of the masses. And we have been using all types of media, whether we're talking video, whether we're talking strictly audio, digital radio, or social media. We have been using that as a tool to inform people and get them the right information. Well, unfortunately, Robin has become a victim, it seems, of the Russiagate hysteria that has been ongoing in this country since 2016, which I believe the evidence shows all started with Hillary Clinton's campaign paying for oppositional research provided by a former UK spy who used his contacts in Russia to come up with this research on Donald Trump, which turned out to be a bunch of garbage. But that's been the narrative, is that Russia's influencing black folks and getting us all worried about racism and what have you. Just, Kamala Harris actually, I've been looking at this Senate intelligence report that's saying that Russian assets have been exploiting, as Kamala Harris calls it, the Achilles heel of racism in this country to divide us, as if we need some third party outside the country to, cause racial tension in this country, with the way racism and stories of racism already saturate not only mainstream media news, although the context may not be proper, but we ourselves post about these stories. We capture, white people behaving badly and post their videos to social media. So it's not like Russia is stoking all this racial tension, as they call it, in the United States. Now, Robin operated several pages, but I believe his main page was anti-racism media or anti-racism TV. But he had a Facebook page that was reaching millions, and not just that page, but other pages as well, with a focus on anti-racism. So I want to welcome my brother Robin into this podcast. It's good to talk to you, man, after I've been out of touch with you for so long. So go ahead, and I know I gave you an introduction, but in your own words, just tell people who you are. Definitely you're a U.S. citizen. I know that. A fellow North Carolinian. So, I know that. But any background information as we jump into this conversation that you would like to share, then by all means do so.
Thank you, Scotty. Thank you for giving me this platform, this opportunity to share a story. What you know is pretty much up to date, but what you don't know is the background on this situation as far as anti-racism media. We started 10 years ago, and I attempted to make it a collective administration. So there was a collective team that was adminning, and a lot of the collective team of admins were from Occupy movement and anonymous, quite frankly. We had, I was part of the National Occupy Gatherings Planning Committee, National Committee, and I actually broke from Occupy when I met you. I embraced the human rights platform with CERD, and there was an international protest plan by Fight Racism Global concerning the UN's Day on Racism. So I, at that time, was running a page called Occupy Racism. And I did a boycott, Sharon Smith and I, from Occupy based on the fact that they, first of all, planned their national gathering on the same weekend as the MLK March on Washington. Additionally, there was a lot of Tea Party folks coming into the Occupy gatherings meetings in terms of the national planning. So we did a boycott because they were bringing indigenous folks in to do a powwow and a fake peace treaty signing from Vancouver. And they didn't do any of the proper protocol in terms of dealing with the indigenous folks here in Michigan at that time. They also refused to deal with Idle No More, which was spearheading environmental issues concerning fracking and otherwise. And so we did a boycott. And I started this page, reactivated this page, Anti-Racism Media, although the goal always was Anti-Racism TV, a niche channel dealing with 24-hour content concerning racism and white supremacy. But at that time, webcasting had just started, the streaming had just started. So I did media until such time as I could do the actual .tv, and that's another story. But recently, we have been building a following of 104,000 last count, and a reach of 1 to 2 million per month for the last years, quite frankly. The plan was finally for me to migrate out of Facebook into a community social media network called Mighty Networks that I had set up, and my own .tv, anti-racism.tv. Had captured the domain, was building the website, was setting up the template to transfer my Facebook following into this new domain, and I got cut off without notification. There was some controversy in that I had taken on an admin in Anti-Racism Media that turned out to be a problem, in that he was posting what they call fake news. And so I, in addition to that, I had set up a group called Anti-Racism Media Race Treaty Group to try to start getting some of my staunch followers and active vocal folks to a group page to kind of protect us. They blocked me from admitting my own group. They blocked me from Anti-Racism Media. And about a week later, I just got a notice on Gmail that my personal account and my page had been deleted, not suspended, but deleted.
With no explanation,
there was
right?
There's no explanation other than the generic statement, this goes, your post goes against community standards. However, they gave me no particular post that they were referring to. Mm-hmm. And I actually appealed immediately, and that was over a month ago. So I don't know what my status is. I know that Anti-Racism Media had quite a following. I never came in front of the screen as the founder of Anti-Racism Media. I always made it generic about the work, not about the individual. And so, excuse me on this phone call, that's Brother Najee from our race treaty. So I've been, not only that I was affected by something I invested 10 years in, Scotty, but we're about to monetize. And it seems like they caught wind of that and X'd me. Now, I've gotten other email notifications that a few other pages had been taken down that I associated with but weren't part of. And so I thought it was part of a theme. Right after Zuckerman had gone to Congress or talked with the conservative media about allowing candidates to post their falsehoods on Facebook without fact checking. I thought that ironic, in that they're just doing a clean sweep of Black conscious social media sites. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, without getting conspiratorial, it's going on. There's the Black extremist issue. There's intermittent issues about even using posts with white people as spelled correctly. It would flag a response. Right. But a few weeks before, Scotty, I went off of Facebook, or got taken off. I had posted a meme which actually had found some pictures of these so-called Facebook monitors that determine what hate speech is or community standards. And these folks did not look educated. They did not look to be trained in any kind of cultural competency as to determining what is in fact racist or against community standards, or what is hate speech. But more than that, I would feel that I would have an issue if it were my personal post that I created and put out there. But if I'm reposting something that's out there and they penalize me, it seems like there's a violation right there of due process, and that they have the ability to take that post that they're concerned that I posted with this originator, send a notice and take it offline. But yet they allow people to repost and retweet articles, and then they hold them culpable without even dealing with the source of that information. Now, so it's difficult to fact check in total detail every darn post. I read most of my posts, and so I do know that there's this trend of people who are dealing with a conscious message being labeled, if you will. And I'm a human rights defender, as you know. I have a human rights framework, but I impose a racial equity lens on the work I do. And so I can generically take off the AP Wire and other sourcing articles on racism each and every day. And over the years, it's obviously has increased to be front page news. The talking heads use the term racism, although they don't use or hold to any kind of universal definition. They're saying he's a racist because he used that word.
Right.
Well, from my perspective, is everybody's that is white is a racist living under a white supremacy system. And then we have black folks that are upholding that same system, proxy racist or otherwise. And I just came to conclude, Scotty, about my work and just this issue, that most black folks don't want to undo white supremacy. They just want a better place in it.
I wouldn't. If you allow me to interject, I wouldn't say most, because there's no way for me to quantify that. But I would say that most people have been pacified or made afraid to stand up because they will lose their pages, as you just lost your page. I just made a post about us living in a nation of cowards who are unwilling to speak truth to power for fear of not being featured on mainstream media or given some kind of contributor contract on CNN or MSNBC, or we're not going to attract corporate advertisers. So I'm going to just water it down. I'm going to talk about racism in a roundabout way, but I'm not really going to get at the heart of the matter. I'm not going to push it hard, because I don't want to lose. Okay. So, but let me bring this up, because this was an article published in The Root. And I was actually just critical of The Root and its political editor, Dr. John Johnson, for his political coverage, which is a bunch of nonsense. And it's really in support of the DNC establishment and Democrats establishment trying to lead poor and working class black people to vote for whatever the establishment candidate turns out to be, and then just being unprofessional and what have you. And I said, I even criticized Roland Martin for caping for Hillary Clinton, and it's like, I think that their bias or their willingness to not be critical of the powers to be stems to those business connections that they're trying to make, those corporate advertisement dollars they're trying to attract. Now, I think they do a fairly decent job when it comes to stories about a white cop shooting a black person or a black child being mistreated in the school system, and just everyday instances of racism that we deal with. But when it comes to institutional racism involving, they don't have a problem calling out Republicans. But when it comes to the institutional racism of the Democratic Party, then they don't want to speak to it. Now, I did find an article on The Root, with all of that said, that was published earlier this year on April the 24th this year. Dara Sharif is the writer of this article, and I'm just going to read a little bit because it speaks directly to what just happened to you, and it's not anything new, but it's been an ongoing problem. So let me share some of this with you in the audience. It says, Facebook has the title of the article, if people want to look it up, is "We Got Zucked. Facebook censors speech that calls out racism, black activists charge." Facebook has a problem in black and white, black activists charge. We're even pointing out racism or racist posts or mentioning the word black as in black-owned business can get the post taken down for violating hate speech standards and lead to a suspension of the user's account. Activists call it being zucked. USA Today reports a reference to Facebook co-founder and CEO Mark Zuckerberg, and the activists say they're fed up. Teacher Carolyn Weisinger is one of them. She says Facebook suspended her account and deleted a post in which she pointed out the racism she saw in actor Liam Neeson's admission that he dreamed of hunting down and killing a black man, any black man, after a white female friend of his said she was raped by a man who happened to be black. Her comment, "White men are so fragile," in the mere presence of a black person challenges every single thing in them, got her suspended or put into what many activists refer to as Facebook jail. It's exhausting, Weisinger told Facebook, and it drains you emotionally. And one more excerpt from this article that is pulling an excerpt from a USA Today. USA Today notes, black activists say hate speech policies and content moderation systems formulated by a company built by and dominated by white men failed the very people Facebook claims it's trying to protect. Not only are the voices of marginalized groups disproportionately stifled, Facebook rarely takes action on repeated reports of racial slurs, violent threats, and harassment campaigns targeting black users, they say. Many of these users now think twice before this speaks to what we were just talking about, people being in fear of even talking about racism. It says many of these users now think twice before posting updates on Facebook, or they limit how widely their posts are shared, meaning that they'll make it secret or friends only and not public. Yet few can afford to leave the single largest and most powerful social media platform for sharing information and creating a community. Your comments? Sounds similar to what happened to you. Very, very. Fits the pattern, doesn't it?
It does fit a pattern, and I pulled up an article today by the Intercept called "Still Spying on Dissent: The Enduring Problem of FBI First Amendment Abuse," and it speaks to the identity, the black identity phantom that they created just based on black post-protest.
BIE,
Pardon me?
BIE,
yes,
Black Identity Extremists.
And they're trying to bolster that identity by just tagging people, with this ban issue without there being any declaration. I feel there's an onslaught on the black activist movement. They want to generalize and say it's Black Lives Matter or it's this or that. But in actuality, they're attempting to, as usual, control the narrative.
Right.
Control the narrative of the definitions, because, like, as we speak, everybody has this their own personal view of what racism is. There's no shared universal definitions. In the last month that anti-racism media was on, we were inundated with trolls, not only just making commentary, but filing complaints. And the articles were not unfactual. They were just articles that were pretty much cutting edge and citing that white people are racist and that this system, and provokes that ending in terms of trauma and impact on people of color. What I did do too is follow the police killings, and that in itself drew attention to law enforcement or otherwise, in that you have this argument about, that these are isolated incidents, and when you and I both know that there is a ongoing issue with police force killing black people, killing black men, killing black youth. What is not even talked about is 64,000 plus black women missing in this country. Doesn't reach headlines at all. So I find myself when we were posting these articles, we would have these exchanges with trolls and racists, no problem. But when they start doing this onslaught, like it was a campaign to make complaints, call out articles as being fake news,
right.
attempting to snope, issues, and we just kind of kept deleting them, but they would come back with these complaints concerning, articles being inaccurate and otherwise. I don't understand their way to determine what is in violation. I've never posted anything admonishing violence against white people or anybody. I just post what's already out there, and rarely, and you know this about me, rarely do I make personal commentary. I usually try to keep my personal views close to my chest, and just put the articles out there and engage in the interactions in response to the articles. So I didn't feel like I was ever pushing any type of agenda. And in fact, a lot of my following would get mad if I posted something from Breitbart or one of these alt-right sites. But I would do it just for commentary to see what the other folks is doing, in terms of using the term racism or white supremacy. I feel, Scotty, that there's this movement to shut us down in terms of the issues concerning racism. And when I say racism, I say that with a knowing that the fulcrum of racism or discrimination is anti-black discrimination. And so we have this nuanced issue of people of color claiming, oppression Olympics, but in actuality, the root of discrimination in this country is based on anti-black.
Right, the historical root. That is not to say that, let's say, indigenous Spanish-speaking people, because a lot of people want to
LGBT.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
However, though, man, if you, I'm surprised you haven't been taken off either. The point of the matter is that we don't have a free media, that they are trying to control the narrative.
Well, let me say this. Let me say this, though. I have noticed that I'm being suppressed, that the posts are being suppressed. And I don't even post as much anymore. It's, of course, when there's a podcast or a program coming on air on Black Talk Radio Network, of course, I'm going to share that to our Black Talk Radio Network Facebook page, which only didn't have a biggest following as you, only right now, maybe up to 26,000 followers on Facebook. But when I first created that page, I would say up until 2019, I would get still a lot of distribution, a lot of views, my reach, to use Facebook's terminology, my reach. But in 2019, I started noticing my reach just start getting smaller and smaller and smaller. I believe the same thing. Why I haven't researched it or paid attention enough to my metrics on Twitter, but I believe the same thing is happening on Twitter. Okay, I do believe that there is a concerted effort to suppress speech that they may call anti-police, anti-U.S. government, anti-capitalist, anti-imperialism, just speaking real truth to power. I believe that there is a concerted effort to suppress that speech.
Without a doubt, Scotty, it's not just in response to posts, but I believe that they're trying to tie this whole Russian thing, and because it was based on them using race as a wedge for political purposes, and that they actually generated pages and articles that were not ever called false or fake, but they were inflammatory. You know, the Blacktivist was one of the pages that got real inflammatory in their view. And I just personally believe that after their conversation with these conservatives, that there was actually a policy put in place that they're activating. And we have no power. We only have truth to power. But if they black us out, you know, we're controlled, or they're attempting to control this platform.
To your point, though, as you know, and you mentioned earlier, you set up a separate independent social media community. We have BTRcommunity.com. But the thing is, though, is trying to move the people from these platforms to these independent platforms and what have you. It's really been a challenge for me. As you mentioned, you know, you were about to really start doing that. But again, this speaks to what Malcolm X said about the media controlling the minds of the masses. You know, it's like social media addiction. You know, we want to be.
I'll tell you something else they did. You know, usually you could connect these various social media sites together. Like you can post on Facebook and it'll show up on Twitter with permission. Mm-hmm. They severed my Facebook from Twitter. They won't repost, and I keep going through whatever the mechanisms is to do that sharing permission wise. It won't happen. It doesn't happen. So it's almost like they have a behind the scenes capability to come into your page and create havoc, technical and complaints by anonymous citizens. Mm-hmm. Which, you know, I find it ironic that there was a big uptick also in white supremacists or racists coming on the page making commentary, you know, complaining, questioning. Oftentimes their best statement was, "You're a racist. You just, provoke racism on this page." It's almost like, you know, you're a racist if you talk about racism.
Right.
And, you know, again, you know, I would post a lot of educational material, not just provocative posts. I just feel I've been on a monitoring tip for a while.
No doubt. No doubt.
You know,
we all are.
And I don't hide because I have nothing to hide but the truth. And I'm not engaged. I'm not planning. I'm not plotting anything that's illegal. And I don't have personal hate for white people. I have a disdain for white supremacy, which lends privilege to one group and oppression to the other. And, you know, I've spelled that out, as you know. I call it the best I could. And I was ready, honestly, Scotty, to come before the camera as we're doing now and start making commentary each and every day about my posts, and do it at .tv, wherein we had also a secondary page, by the way, domain attached, called reportracism.cam. So I was trying to create up a hashtag to get user-generated content to come to one page based on these hashtags at reportracism.cam. So we were about to enter into a era where we were going to promote user-generated content as well as premium content. And we are also going to put our Facebook and Twitter feeds on that .tv page to try to migrate. I've been thinking all kinds of techniques, right, to get outside that walled garden. Mm-hmm. And, you know, in a way, I kind of alluded to that in my group, saying we're about to launch this and we're about to do that. And, man, it was just without explanation. The timing was too on point with my other activities to try to migrate out of that walled garden. It's almost like they knew that I was about to go into a fundraising to have a 24/7 niche channel called antiracism.tv. Wow. Finally, I had reached the point where I was about to fulfill my original goal, which wasn't to post or even have a radio show. It was a live 24-hour streaming channel about racism.
Right.
And, you know, it don't have to be the subject of racism. We can look at the news and call racism.
Right.
You know, we see racism in all areas of people activity. You know, it's in education, law enforcement, economics, housing, culture and religion, media. You know, it's all over. It's in every area of people activity. So we were going to try to break our channel down to cover articles in these various areas, as Neely Fuller put it, of people activity. And it seems like it was a plan, like I had gone too far to begin to activate this next level of communicating, and they severed it. So right now I'm kind of like hamstrung. I got the .tv, I got the group, but I have no followers. I did activate another Facebook page called anti-racism.tv. I have no followers, and for some reason I can't get outside that page to add friends or even make commentary on other people's pages to know that I exist or that page exists. So I'm seeing a lot of real sketchy things going on that is no way technical, and is no way just policy. It's like something's going on. And I'm not trying to get paranoid, but I want to say that there is a movement to, especially with this campaign season coming, to down the Black activist knowledge, but also at the same time, what I call this whole issue with Congress and the issue concerning reparations, I called it honey for 220, because all they were doing is talking about discussing. There's no reparations coming through that congressional mechanism. What they were doing is try to attach it to this candidate season, this political season, and they would get more Black folks out voting, thinking they're gonna get a check than at any time in history.
Well, let me put it this way, because we are in partnership with what's the group? Man, I'm getting brain freeze here. They actually wrote HR 40. Long time.
Are you talking about InCobra?
Yes, InCobra. We partner with InCobra to produce a hour-long broadcast on the first and third Monday of the month. And InCobra actually wrote that bill, and there's a lot of misinformation out there, but you are correct. What the bill does is set up the study commission. The study commission then calls on long-time organizations, not just people who just popping up now, but people like InCobra and what have you will be given a seat, on this commission. The president gets to pick a person, which I wouldn't want Trump picking nobody. He wouldn't pick nobody. He'll pick somebody to disrupt it. So, I mean, there is some legitimate criticism that I have about the bill and what have you, but they're really not pushing that during the debate discussions and what have you. But the commission is supposed to document it, just like how the UN committee that issued a reparations report said that the United States owes reparations not just for slavery past, but for slavery present. What they call mass incarceration, which I call a continuation of slavery through the 13th Amendment, but also for the police violence. That's the UN. A lot of people don't know about that UN committee.
People don't know that the U.S. was guilty of 25 violations of human rights. And they don't know also the legal framework outside of this Constitution and civil rights. Because as soon as they put any acknowledgement in terms of reparations in any kind of legislative format, we're supposed to be able to jump straight to war courts for crimes against humanity. Yeah,
but let me say this though, because I focus a lot on politics, especially I get busy during campaign season, and I'm supporting Bernie Sanders platform. Let me put it that way, because I don't support individual cults of personality. I read platforms, and I see which platform is going to help the most people who need help the most. As Neely Fuller says, a system of justice is where people who need the most help get it. And of course, we know automatically that means Black folks. And then along with my prison slavery abolition, Bernie Sanders' platform is the only platform that has adopted some of the demands, not all of them, and it by far, his platform could be better on prisoners' human rights. But his campaign is the only one. I think they've adopted 6 of the 10 demands that prisoners were, when they went on strike in 2018, were demanding. His platform is the only one to do that. Eliminating student debt, eliminating medical debt, Medicare for all, college act for all. We need those things. We need those things. So even if
They know we
reparations,
need those things, Scotty.
right?
And the truth of the matter is, this is my view on politics. I don't really get involved in the politics based on the fact that whoever they vote in is going to be president of white supremacy. Secondly, when you get these ideas on the platforms, I read them also. They sound good, but then I think to my mind, once they get in that office, they're isolated.
Well,
they have to go through whoever's around them, legislation,
well,
Congress.
hence why I support Sanders, because he has a track record of never changing, and fighting for the same issues every year. But I don't want to get into politics here. No. I understand that some people in our community don't want to vote, don't see that it makes any kind of difference, and I'm not going to argue with them about that, but I do. And a lot of people that follow me do, and they follow me so that I can give them my political insights.
Right.
But what we're talking about, though, is the suppression of activists calling out white supremacy, calling out racism.
Free speech issue.
Yeah, it's a free speech issue. It's a free speech issue. And I don't feel like it's being addressed enough. Yeah, Congress had a hearing talking about these hate groups or what have you. But then, we've been talking here for over 30 minutes where we're seeing legitimate posts are being flagged as hate speech and we're being kicked off. The bottom line, I feel like at the end of the day, is to do what you were working towards doing. I just hate that they caught wind, if that's the case, of what you were planning, and then because 1 million, 2 million, that kind of reach, that's no small thing. You know what I'm saying? That's no small thing. And so they saw you as a threat. And I believe that is why you have been taken off the Facebook board, so to speak. But do you have
just my page, me personally?
Yeah, you personally.
Me personally. And that affects my messenger, all my contacts, obviously all of the archives of my pictures, family, whatever personal items I had stored there. I had to acknowledge in my mind, I've just given over my personal life to this corporate entity that's imposing power, without any kind of due process. And I'm wondering what the legal basis is, because we're so cut off, Scotty, that we don't know who else is cut off. And I got a feeling if we're able to determine that there's going to be more than just isolated individuals like myself, we'll see that concerted effort. But what is the legal foundation or basis to come up out of this? For me personally, it wasn't the issue of free speech. It was, I was about to monetize my fan base and my reach in another domain platform. And I feel that they impeded on my ability to monetize, which we're in a capitalist system. I had never, not that I hadn't thought to do it, but it was about the timing. And so the timing was now to start monetizing so that we would have a 24-hour station. Right. So I feel like damage was done in my business pursuit, not just in personal posting views or opinions, but that I had a business infrastructure set up, and it was undermined. And so taking 100, put it like this in figures, 2 million people, Scotty, if I got 10,000 out of 2 million to give $1 a month, that's 10 grand a month to get me locked.
Oh, you preaching to the choir on that, man. And why I struggle to understand with the reach that, I don't know if you know it or not, but a independent media company based in India ranked Black Talk Radio Network the #1 digital radio and podcasting platform that's targeting black people. And so, we got all these people. Yeah, but awards don't pay the bills though, bro.
My man, I know that.
Awards don't pay the bills.
I'm poor, and I put a portion of my poverty income towards trying to stay online. And I had
as well as I,
where I invested in the mighty networks. I got my domain, paid the web developer, got XSplit, got webinars, ability through Zoom, got all the apparatus in place, and I got severed, man. It's like, so I really right now I'm at a want to move forward but can't, and I'm trying to determine like what's going on here. And I thought about ACLU, and I also thought about the argument that if they're going to allow these candidates to post advertisements that they know are lies, are misinformation, or non-factual, but they're going to do it in exchange for being compensated by these candidates, I think they've crossed the rubrics in terms of free speech.
Right.
And their criteria that they impose anonymously on the rest of Facebook, like you just posted fake news. Well, right. If they're getting paid to post fake news on the part of candidates, and they've gone into a closed room session with the conservative media groups, and then right after that, all of a sudden, black folks get disappeared, or radical or alternative media gets disappeared off of Facebook without really notification or due process, something's going on. Something's going on, and we'll find out down the line.
Hey, I will say this.
FOIA it.
I will,
and I don't have the money to go and contact ACLU.
Yeah. So let me say this though. I'm willing to bet you a dime to a dollar that it ain't Russia that's kicking black folks off of Facebook. No. So I just want to close with that. Tell people how they can get in touch with you. Hey, if you're an attorney out there and you're willing to donate your services and your pro bono, if you think after what you heard that he has a case against Facebook, Mr. Robin Jerome Benton, reach out to him, and because this is about, now y'all was out there protesting about freedom of speech and democracy for some Hong Kong protesters when our rights are under assault every day right here behind enemy lines, as I have been known to say, of USA Inc. So if you're an attorney out there, or if you have some resources and you'll like to help Robin in this situation that he has found, how can they get in touch with you, Robin? And of course, give out any remaining social media that you have where people can follow you.
So we're on Twitter, Anti-Racism TV's on Twitter. We're on Tumblr. We're on Instagram, and my email is antiracismtv@gmail.com. I host a lot of pages, but that's my main contact point. And we're reactivating a page, anti-racism.tv. And so I've trying to maintain that identity. It just has no reach. We're in a kind of a law period right now to determine how we're going to proceed forward, if we have a legal base. And, I did the appeal at Facebook. I haven't heard anything back. So I would ask that the audience, first of all, keep in touch with Black Talk Radio, because you're hubbing this situation. And I got a feeling, not the only isolated incident, So we are asking for some support, and to ask also that people understand the vision of having, just like CNN or Spike TV or whatever, that there needs to be a 24 station on racism. And so we can normalize the conversation, universalize the definitions, understand that we have human rights, and that the United States is in violation of his own signed treaties, and that CERD, the Convention to Eliminate Racial Discrimination, is an international law that the U.S. did sign on to, that did ratify, but has not legislated into law. Racism is illegal, and discrimination is an act. So when we focus on discrimination, we're honing in on a particular act, not the source of the act, not the system behind the act, not the policy behind the act.
The crime itself.
I'm on a mission to expand our human rights conventions to demand that racism be considered a violation of human rights, and that there should be a convention to eliminate racism, not just eliminate the act through CERD, but eliminate racism as a global negative energy force that's controlling people of color and oppressing us. I mean, that's just the bottom line. My concern is that without information, and information should be free, we're going to be closed in on this political talking heads. And again, we have to consider the source of who's controlling the narrative.
Right.
Self-determined is based on our own voice. You've lent a platform for that. I attempted to lend a platform for sharing information. Never went in front of the screen and said, hey, I'm the founder, it's about me. I kept that generic face to keep a separation, but they got wind of that I'm behind it, and have severed something that was 10 years worth of work. Scotty, I've posted on racism, white supremacy every day since you've known me. You know you could go to that page, and I've got some information there. I mean, it's been part of my life.
Yeah,
right?
You've been at this as long as me, because, November will be our 11th year anniversary. And I'm not sure the exact year when I met you, but I was like, I felt the kindred spirit. You know what I'm saying? This dude he really cares about the people. He about putting in that grassroots work. He understands the power of media like I understand the power of media. Yeah. So yeah, I've been a big supporter of what you've been doing.
You have. And race treaty, which is a term which refers to the International Convention to Eliminate Racial Discrimination, I focused on that based on the fact that white supremacy is illegal. And that at that time, I was part of the third task force for U.S. Human Rights Network. I've worked with Dr. Rando, on the basis of racism being a violation of human rights.
Yeah,
and
Dr.
we try to probe
Rando.
Black Lives Matter. We try to probe Occupy. We try to probe any movement to expand their lens to understand that their cause is a human rights violation. I feel that the work is not finished, that it shouldn't be based on an individual. It should be based on a movement to elevate our understanding that we are born with human rights, that this is a legal framework that puts the U.S. in check if we were to elevate our activities in terms of legal activities to the international courts. That's kind of the work behind the scenes, but bro, human rights is being violated across the board, from children to torture to social and political rights, economic rights,
slavery,
environmental rights. There's a movement to stop Black voices. That's the bottom line. And I have to give props because you saw all this shit in advance, Scotty, and tried to create a community outside of Facebook, create a identity of media sharing without it being dependent on a platform controlled by people of European descent. That's where Facebook has got the advantage on us. They've got our personal information, our network, our history of content. They can profile us, and they've made a determination that they're going to sever voices. And yes, I'm very proud that we have built to reach 1 million to 2 million a month. And it was feeling that everybody's really now talking about what's in the headlines, racism. Unfortunately, Scotty, the talking heads might say something Trump said is racist, but shoot, where I come from, the definitions that we push forward is racism is racial prejudice plus power. We focus on racial prejudice incidents, but we neglect the power system behind it. And the power system is the government, corporations, civil society, nonprofits. Any system controlled by white people is basically showing outcomes that to the detriment of Black folks and Latino folks. Okay. So again, I thank you for this opportunity. I hope to hear back at antiracismtv@gmail.com. Follow me on Twitter, antiracismtv, and please communicate that there are others out there that are suffering the same kind of situation and circumstance by the powers that be. And I'll be following you closely to see what kind of feedback we get to the circumstances that you shared and allowed me to share tonight.
No doubt. And you stay safe behind these enemy lines. And I will, with that, say to the listeners and the viewers of this podcast, good night, peace and blessings to all.